All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm Lenny.
And I'm Maria.
We've got to diving into
the world of B12.
Yeah, B12. And
It's
let me tell you, the information we found was pretty surprising.
yeah, it was. Really was. Like,
Really surprising.
You know that friend that went vegan and swore up and down that they felt amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the research we've got
here paints a very different picture.
Very, very different.
It turns out
It really does.
that B12 is only found in animal products.
Yeah. That's it.
Plants just don't have it.
No. So we're going to break this down. What this means for your health, why those blood tests might be misleading, and what foods you should be eating to make sure you're getting enough of this crucial vitamin.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's super important because we all hear, you need your B12, but we don't really understand, like, what does that actually mean? What does a B12 deficiency look like?
Yeah.
What are the implications?
And where does it come from? I mean, like you said, this research is saying that it's only in animal products. So what does that mean?
Well, it's really interesting because one of the things that we found in the research was a study of 160,000 vegans and vegetarians.
Wow.
And it showed higher rates of mental health issues.
Oh, wow.
So they were twice as likely to take medication for mental illness and 3 times more likely to consider suicide. And the source that we're looking at here is linking this directly to nutrient deficiencies that are caused by plant-based diets.
Wow. Those numbers are really startling. I mean, 3 times more likely. It makes you wonder if what people are eating is really affecting their mental well-being.
And it's something that's not talked about very often.
Yeah, it's not.
It's kind of like the elephant in the room when we talk about these things.
Yeah.
And this article really dives into it.
It does.
And suggests
head first
that there's very much a connection between what you eat and how you feel mentally and emotionally.
So then if we need B12 from animal products to function properly, what does that tell us about how we're designed to eat?
Well, this article uses this term, obligate hypercarnivore.
Obligate hypercarnivore.
To describe humans.
What does that even mean?
Basically, think of it like this. We're basically designed to thrive on a meat-heavy diet.
Right.
Our digestive systems just aren't built to break down plants and absorb nutrients from them the way that true herbivores are.
Okay.
Like cows have multiple stomachs.
Right.
We just don't have that same machinery.
So we're just not as efficient at getting those nutrients out.
Exactly.
That makes sense when you think about, like, our ancestors and how they relied on.
They relied on hunting and meat consumption.
Yeah, exactly.
To survive.
But then what about that whole idea that that we can get all the nutrients we need from plants?
Right. So that's the thing. This article really pushes back on that idea.
Interesting.
It says that plant compounds are actually chemically different than the ones in human cells.
Okay.
It's kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
Your body just can't utilize them as easily.
Because they're not in the form that our bodies are looking for.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're just not compatible in that way.
So it's not just about the nutrients being there. It's about if our bodies can actually use them.
Whether your body can access and use them.
Interesting.
And that's particularly important when we're talking about B12.
Okay.
Because even if you find B12 in plants, it's not the type that our bodies can easily recognize.
Okay, so it's not as readily available.
And utilize effectively. It's just not the same.
Now, one thing I found really interesting in this article is it talks about how important cholesterol is for brain health.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something we usually hear negative things about.
Right. It's always cholesterol is bad.
Yeah.
But this article argues that animal products are a key source of the type of cholesterol that our brains need.
Right, the good cholesterol.
And that plant-based diets just don't cut it in this department.
It's like our brains need it.
They do.
To function.
To function properly.
And they need the kind.
It helps with things like memory and thinking.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that type of cholesterol comes from animal products.
And from what I understand, B12 isn't the only thing that might be missing.
Right.
In a vegan or vegetarian diet.
Exactly.
This article also mentions iron. And omega-3s.
Yeah. And while you can technically find those in plants, the forms they come in are just not as easily absorbed.
Right. So it's harder to get.
Think of it this way. Eating a steak is like getting a direct deposit of nutrients straight into your system.
I like that analogy.
But plants are more like trying to cash a check. There's extra steps, it's not guaranteed, and sometimes the bank just refuses it.
And that can lead to problems.
Exactly. So things like fatigue, weakness, and even, more serious things down the line.
But hold on a second. What about blood tests? Don't those show if we're low on stuff like B12?
Right. That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think there's this misconception that a blood test is like the end-all, be-all.
Yeah, for sure.
And while it can measure nutrient levels, it can't always tell if those nutrients are in a form your body can actually use.
So you could have normal B12 reading.
Exactly.
But still be deficient.
Exactly.
That's scary.
And I think this can be particularly true for vegans and vegetarians who oftentimes will display physical signs of multiple nutrient deficiencies.
Interesting.
Things like fatigue, weakness, you name it. And the author of this article argues that this is directly related to not getting the nutrients they need from those plant-based sources.
It's almost like their body's saying, hey, I need this.
Hey, I'm starving.
But it's not showing up.
It's not showing up.
That's wild.
It's long-term malnutrition.
Wow. Okay. So let's just focus on B12 for a second.
Okay.
Why is it so important? Why do we need it?
So B12 is involved in a ton of vital functions in the body. It helps with red blood cell production, DNA synthesis, keeping your nerves healthy, and producing energy.
So it's like the foundation.
It is. And if you're deficient, you could end up with anemia, you could be tired all the time, and you could even have neurological problems.
So it affects pretty much everything.
Physical and mental well-being.
Yeah.
The article talks about B12 being important for energy levels and mental clarity.
And that makes sense, right?
Yeah, because we were talking about its role in energy production and nerve health.
So is it like a sudden burst of energy, or is it more of a...
It's not a sudden burst. It's more that if you're deficient, you're going to feel drained and foggy,
So then what are some other signs of B12 deficiency that we should be looking out for?
The article mentions mood swings, depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, so, having trouble thinking, memory issues, fatigue, weakness, and even numbness and tingling in your hands and feet.
Wow.
It can be.
So if you have any of those,
you should talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
Because it could be related.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty serious.
So the official recommendation for B12 is 2.4 micrograms a day.
Right.
Is that really enough, though?
That's a great question. I mean, and this article actually makes the argument that might not be enough for everyone, particularly when you consider that many people aren't absorbing and utilizing B12 properly.
So even if you're hitting that number, your body might not be able to use all of it.
Exactly.
And that's why they really emphasize getting B12 from natural animal-based sources. Because those are the ones that our bodies can easily use.
Because they provide it in a form that our bodies can easily recognize and utilize.
And the research does point to animal products being the best source of B12.
It really does.
The article mentioned liver and clams specifically as being really good sources.
Excellent sources.
Now, this article is super into liver.
Yes.
Calls it like a nutritional powerhouse.
It's like nature's multivitamin.
Right. A real B12 powerhouse.
B12 powerhouse.
But there's other animal-based foods too, right?
Oh, yeah.
That have D12.
Absolutely.
So like beef,
fish,
milk,
yogurt,
cheese, eggs. All of these contain bioavailable B12.
That your body can readily use.
But even if you're eating all the right things, there are things that can affect how well your body absorbs it.
That's true.
Right.
The article mentions...
Like what?
Digestive issues.
Wow.
Certain medications like antacids, metformin, antibiotics, alcohol consumption, and even nitrous oxide.
Oh, wow.
All of those can interfere with B12 absorption.
So you might be eating all the right food,
but not actually getting the B12.
Yeah.
Because your body's not absorbing it.
That's interesting.
So it's really important to pay attention to your overall health, your lifestyle
choices.
And talk to your doctor
if
you have any concerns.
Now, speaking of things that can affect B12 absorption, this article really goes after B12 supplements.
It does.
Like really goes after them.
The author does not hold back.
No, not at all.
They claim that a lot of supplements out there contain artificial B12. That can be toxic to the body.
Toxic, wow.
And they even say that any kind of energy boost that people get from supplements is more likely a stress response.
Oh, interesting.
To those chemicals, not the B12 actually working.
That's wild. I would never have thought about it that way.
And they specifically say that the types of B12 that you find in supplements are chemically different from what's found naturally in our bodies and in animal products.
So even if it says it's a natural...
Yeah, even if it's methylcobalamin, which is a natural form of B12, it's still not the same
as what you would get from eating food.
As eating food.
Okay.
And they're worried that these supplements could lead to a buildup of potentially toxic compounds in your body.
Because your body might not know how to process it.
They say your body struggles to process and eliminate large amounts of this artificial B12.
But isn't B12 water soluble? Right. So I always thought that meant your body could just get rid of...
Yeah, and to an extent that's true.
Okay.
But the argument here is that when you're talking about large amounts of artificial B12, it overwhelms your body. It can't keep up.
So it's not just a matter of too much is too much. It's
the type.
It's the type.
The type of B12.
Interesting.
So what about all those energy drinks that are like...
Yeah, they always...
packed with B12.
They're advertising it.
Right.
So is that a good source then?
They actually recommend not relying on energy drinks as a source of B12.
Why is that?
Because...
Is it the same issue with the artificial?
They warn that the B12 in those is likely artificial.
Oh, okay.
And could be harmful.
So their message is practically food first.
Food first.
When it comes to B12.
Supplements, never.
Supplements, never.
For really emphasizing that a balanced diet rich in animal products should provide all the B12 you need.
Without having to take supplements.
Without having to resort to those supplements.
Wow, this is a lot to think about.
It is.
We covered a lot about B12 in this first part.
We did.
Of our deep dive.
We did.
And, it's just one perspective.
Yeah.
Based on this one article.
It's important to remember that we always encourage listeners to do their own research.
Yeah.
Talk to their doctor.
Absolutely, talk to your doctor.
And make informed decisions about their health based on what feels best for them.
Exactly.
We're just giving you some food for thought.
The information.
And we hope that you'll do your own digging and come to your own conclusions.
But we'll be back.
We will.
To explore even more about B12 and
what it all means.
What it means for our health.
Yeah.
So stick around.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This research has really made me rethink what a balanced diet even means. If this is true, maybe what we think is balanced really isn't.
Yeah, it kind of turns that conventional wisdom about plant-based diets on its head, doesn't it?
Totally. So it's saying animal products are the best, like the only way to get all the good stuff our bodies actually use.
Yeah, that's a major point the article keeps hammering home. It highlights how animal products give you this complete package. Proteins, vitamins, all those minerals, even the tiny micronutrients, all working together in a way we can actually use.
It even specifically calls out protein, vitamins B12, B6, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin A, zinc, iron, calcium, phosphorus, and like the whole way they work together.
Right, and it contrasts that with plant-based stuff. Like often something's missing, or it's got these anti-nutrients blocking absorption. It's saying, yeah, you get some stuff, but not like the ready-to-go package from animals.
So again, it's not just how MUCH is there, but can our bodies actually unlock it?
Exactly.
Which brings up a big question. If animal-based foods are the best way to get all that good stuff, what about people who don't eat them at all?
That's where it gets tricky, right? Because now you're talking about people's choices, ethical stuff. But from a purely biological standpoint, it's suggesting that cutting out animal products could leave some pretty big gaps, nutrition-wise.
And that can't be good in the long run.
Not really, no. Especially with vegan and vegetarian diets being so popular these days. Often they're touted as the healthier option, but this article throws some serious shade on that.
Yeah, it spends a lot of time debunking the idea that supplements can just fix it.
Oh, absolutely. The author's basically like, B12 supplements, nope, not a real solution, calls them artificial, potentially harmful, says they just can't do what real food does.
They point out that types of B12 in supplements are different chemically from what's in our bodies in animal products.
Yeah, even the methylcobalamin, which is supposed to be natural, it's still not the same, they say. And they're worried about buildup, possibly toxic stuff.
And that energy boost people say they get, that's just your body freaking out over the chemicals, not actual B12 being used.
Exactly. They're skeptical of those energy drinks, too, even though they're often loaded with it. Again, probably the artificial kind.
So the author's really advocating for, like, get back to basics, eat real food.
Big time. They're all about well-rounded, animal-based diet, saying that should give you what you need, no supplements required.
So for listeners out there, what can they do to make sure they're getting enough B12?
Well, if you're already eating meat, fish, eggs, dairy, you're probably okay. They emphasize liver, clams, beef, fish, those kinds of things.
They're seriously gung-ho about liver.
Yeah.
Nature's multivitamin, a real B12 superstar, apparently.
Right. But for folks who don't eat animal products, this throws down a gauntlet.
Definitely. So vegans, vegetarians, really got to pay attention here.
Yeah, working with a doctor, getting blood work done, maybe supplementation with medical guidance, all that becomes more important.
But even then, supplements are iffy based on what we've talked about.
Absolutely, there's risk there.
It's a complex issue for sure.
Big time. Ultimately, everyone's got their own choices to make, their own values, what feels right for their body. But this research is something to consider.
Definitely gives you a lot to think about.
Yeah, it does.
We'll be back for part 3, and we'll keep exploring this whole B12 thing and its impact on our health. Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the last part of our B12 exploration, and man, this research has really gotten me thinking about nutrition in a whole new way. We've talked about mental health risks and how the author's really pushing animal products as the only reliable B12 source.
It's pretty wild how hard they go against supplements, isn't it? Straight up calling them a scam, even potentially toxic.
Yeah, that's strong stuff. Makes you question the whole idea that a pill can just fix everything, especially if you're avoiding animal products.
Their whole point is, any benefit you think you're getting is just your body freaking out over those chemicals, not the B12 actually working, maybe even doing harm.
So ditch the pills, focus on real food sources.
That's the message. And if you eat animal products, they're saying load up on liver, clams, beef, fish, those kinds of things.
Liver's like their favorite, huh?
Ah,
Superfood, nature supplement, they're all about it.
totally. Organ meats in general, they're pushing hard, packed with B12, tons of other nutrients.
But what about people who don't eat those things? Seems like this research leaves them hanging a bit.
Kind of, yeah. They're very focused on animal-based diets, not so much on vegan or vegetarian solutions.
So more questions than answers, maybe, for those folks.
In a way, but it highlights how important it is to be really careful with those diets, planning, monitoring levels, working with a doctor, blood tests, maybe even supplementation, but with medical guidance.
And even then, supplements are risky, from what we've learned.
For sure, it's not a simple fix.
This whole thing's complex, man. Science, ethics, all tied together.
Absolutely. In the end, everyone's got to figure out what works for them, their beliefs, their body. But this research, it's definitely food for thought.
No doubt about it. Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into B12. Like we always say, do your own research, talk to your doctor, make the choices that are right for you.
Couldn't say it better myself. Stay curious, keep learning, and take care of yourselves.
Until next time,
Yeah.
stay curious.